Hey, hey, hey. Joey in the place to be. Every time I say that, I think of, who was it? Fat Albert? Am I dating myself? But
Yeah.
anyway, there we go. It is Art, Art-Centered Marketing, the show, April 9th for 2024. My good friend and confidant, mentor, student, best friend, all that kind of stuff. Is there anything I missed? Lorna Scott is in the house. Good to see you, Lorna.
Hi. Yeah, I think I don't know. Did you put in there
Colleague.
uh colleague, contractor? I don't even know.
Mm.
Sometimes I call you boss and sometimes I call you client. So
Yeah, the
depends.
contractor thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. I'm excited. I'm excited to just put my brain on screen for the next, half an hour or so and see what happens. Because I know we were talking just before the show, and you're like, "What's this time trader thing?" I'm like, "I don't know. We'll figure it out." So,
Hey, that's you and I usually have a lot of good conversations when you're just trying to figure it out. So
yeah.
it'll be good.
I'm going to put up the chat here just in case. Okay, so there we go. So, all right, now I think I've got my stuff together here. And if you're here live, by the way, let us know by hitting hashtag live or hashtag replay if you're watching the replay. Welcome to the show, by the way. Today we're going to talk about the time trader. This is the very first time I've ever done this. This came to me, I was just telling Lorna, I don't know, a couple of hours ago. So I have no idea how this is going to go. I don't even know if this is the right name for it or whatever, but it's basically the concept of this is, hey, who's this?
Who's in
Back in cold
Sweden?
Sweden. That's got to be. Oh, I'm thinking of. Dang, can't remember who this is. Let us know who this is, because I don't have you here. I can't give you props because I don't. The Facebook user thing just comes up here. Okay, so the concept or the idea here is that I'm a big fan of buying back our time. Camila, there we go. Camila, my apologies. It slipped my brain for a second. I saw your picture in my head. I'm like, and then the name slipped for a second. There you are. Welcome, 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 welcome. Hey, by the way, you were just in my hometown, Toronto, weren't you? Like, I saw that last week. Or weren't you in Toronto last week? Something like that. Anyway, back to this. Can you see my ADD is like really on fire today?
Oh, don't even go there.
I'm a big fan of trading, or not trading time but buying back our time. And you know that. So like, it's what can I do to do, where can I put my time in the best way so that is the most effective for whatever I'm doing. And so this is where the concept is, because I have a lot of conversations around time and around what are you doing to not only build the business, but where your time goes in order to make sales. And so this is where this focus is on what are you doing, where are you putting your time in to make the sale. And from a lot of my experience in speaking with people, they put a lot of time into the back end, which means getting the lead and then getting on calls and trying to sell them stuff or whatever it is. So this is where this concept comes in, and where I believe what I want to share what I do that makes it very easy for sales to happen in a visual that hopefully comes across. Is there anything you want to input here before I start drawing things out here?
No, I think let's just start. I'm sure I'll have something to say after that.
Oh my gosh, you put me on. You know what I didn't do? Oh gosh, I did not. Let me see the iPad. Let me just make sure I've got the iPad. No, I don't have it. Hang on a minute. It's the one thing I didn't set up. It'll take me a second here. That's iPad. So
Well, I will, while
this,
you're doing that, I will say I was a little excited when you talked about people focusing more on the sales part or on the back end piece of it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, maybe we're thinking about back end two ways, but I'm thinking of like a back end product, and maybe you're talking about back end is I don't know. Tell me
Yeah.
what you mean by
Yeah.
back end.
I'm basically talking about like where do you put your energy? So it'll make a whole bunch of sense
Okay.
as soon as I start drawing this, but it's basically is I don't put the energy into trying to make the sale. The sales
Hmm.
come easy for me, and I find that everybody I speak to with no fault of their own works on the opposite side.
Yeah.
So hopefully this makes sense to everybody and yourself, and just I'd love to hear from everybody. So if you have any feedback or I don't understand this sucks, like let me know, put it in the chat and all that stuff. So you were in Toronto, right? Yeah, I would love to have a coffee with you for sure. I love coffee. Today I got a new collab from a person who watched me for 2 years. Time is for sure important in several ways. Yes, 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 yes. So
You know,
go ahead.
yeah, okay. I'm going away on my ADD string. I didn't have a chance to tell you. I wanted to tell you because one of the things you teach and say all the time is, it's always on their timeline, and
Right.
that people are watching us when we don't know. And I just went through, as you know, the supporting the Breakthrough Advertising Boot Camp with Brian Kurtz and Chris Mason,
Nice.
and there were two people who came into the boot camp who had been on Brian's list for 6 years,
Mm,
and that was their
incredible, right?
first. Yep, they had like they've not done. I don't even think they bought the Breakthrough Advertising book from him. Like I think that was their first purchase, six
Wow.
years. So he was kind of glad he hadn't cleaned up his list, but I think they're
Right.
active on the list. Like they pay
Yeah.
attention to him, but
Yeah.
they didn't come into his world in a sale until like 6 years later.
Yeah, that's
So
important because I mean that's another discussion we could have one day is about like the whole list cleaning up and all that because there's two camps on that one and when I say clean up the list and remove people from the list that are opted out or something like that, I always get slack from it or flack from it because they're like, well, there's people who have bought 6 years after, and I'm like, yeah, but that's a different thing. If people are engaged, if they're opening stuff but they're not
Mhm.
doing anything, that's a completely different thing. I'm not saying remove those people because they haven't bought. It's when there's nothing. They're not doing anything. They're not opening or
Yeah.
and those are the people that I get off because I just don't want to have that whole reputation within the email provider that you're sending all these emails, 1,000 emails and 10 people are opening. Okay, that doesn't really look good, right? So,
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. It's still, 6 years on a list is a long time.
yeah, I'll happily keep emailing people for years. It doesn't really matter how long it takes them to buy, but at least show some engagement. Anyway, that's
Yeah.
a whole other discussion.
Yeah, it is a whole other story. Take me to the time trade.
Okay, so the time trade is this. So it starts off with this guy. Come on, there we go. And so you have this leverage, and this here. I'm looking at my cheat notes, by the way, because I just drew this today, so I want to make sure that I've got all my ideas here. I'm probably going to make some more as we talk. Actually, what I'm going to do is I'm going to change that color to this is time. Okay, and you leverage time, and on either side of the spectrum, we have this is easy and this is hard. And the idea is that for most of what we're used to is we're looking for more leads. So we're if we put our energy into making it really easy on this side, we might get more leads right here. Right? We open up the funnel and all this other stuff. However it is like, oh yeah, let's get as many leads as we can, and it's really easy for people to get on the list, right? And on the other side of it, we excuse me, we get less. Over here, we get less leads. Oh, sorry, this is on the other side. See, I'm already screwing up. I don't even know what I'm talking about yet. So anyway, there's more leads here. Okay.
Okay.
And there's more leads here. But there's also more resistance on this side from people and less trust. Because like what I'm talking about here, Lorna, is basically like a typical funnel thing, right? Where it's like, come in, get the lead magnet, and you put them through sales stuff, and that's it. So this is where my brain is at the moment. So just stop me anywhere, ask questions, challenge me, whatever you want, as we go through this.
I'm
So
kind of waiting to see it all drawn out before I jump in.
okay, very cool. On the other side, there is more trust over here. Is it more trust? No. This is harder sales. Forget this for a second.
What do you mean by harder sales?
Okay, so here's what happens. You get more leads because it's easy, right? You get more leads because it's easy to bring them in. You're bringing in anybody, but then you focus all of your time over here trying to sell people. So that's where the hard part of it is. It's easy on the front end, and you don't put any time over here. You don't put any time in doing this. You put all of your time over here, and you're trying to sell everybody. So what I'm trying to say is that we are going to trade time somewhere. And what I'm doing is I'm leveraging where am I going to leverage my time. So in my opinion and from my experience, when we don't put any time here on the front end, as you know, I love curating and having conversations, and I'll get into this in a second, right? Then it's easy for us to build a list and get thousands of people and whatever, but then we end up spending all of our time over here, which makes it hard to sell stuff. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So just to make sure that it's clear for me and everyone who's watching is, and I see Collie's here too. So say hi, Collie.
Hey, Collie. Good to see you.
Is that it's harder to get sales. It's not that we're pushing, or is it both, that we're also pushing hard for sales?
Yeah, you're pushing, like, so you're not putting any time over here, okay? And because for whatever reason you want to, and again, I'm not suggesting whatever I'm saying here is not a judgment call, against you or anybody watching or anything like this. Again, I'm literally doing this out of my brain live here to figure it all out. However, I'm just going to reference the typical stuff. So if you're spending like less time on the front end here, which may mean that you automate over here, right? Like you have an automated funnel or something, or you got a webinar or whatever like this. There's no time over here. You're basically saying set it and forget it, and then you're bringing people into a call, like a conversion call or something over here. And this is where you're trying to convince people. So all of your time is spent over here. And it's harder for you to sell. At least it was for me. I'm just using from my experience. That's what it was. It was easy for me to bring leads in, but then I spent more time. It went up trying to make a sale, trying to convert people on clarity calls or whatever, in my case, right?
Yeah, so it's harder to make sales.
Yes.
And you have to work harder for the sales you do get.
Yes. And time is spent, like the same time is spent. You're just deciding where do you want to spend it.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify because I also, in my head, and it might have been just me, is thinking about this is like almost bro marketing, like the
right,
really
for sure
sales. But it's not necessarily that. It might not be. It still could be heart-centered sales, but you're having to work harder to get there and feel like you're pushing harder, even if you're not bro marketing. You feel
right.
like you're pushing. Got it.
Right, right, right. So then if you do the opposite way, okay, and you do it this way, and you have again time is here, and you're spending more time over here at the front end, and you have it. What happens is you will get more trust, and I'll explain this in a second. More trust, and this is the hard part, and this becomes the easy part. This is what, and what I mean by hard is that you'll also get, less opt-ins over here. It's a longer conversion time, maybe. Right? And you're having conversations over here. At least this is the way that I do it, because I do that with Atlas. This is what we talk about a lot. Oops, not conversation. That's
Yeah.
conversation. Right? Conversations. And so this is where I choose to spend my time. Like, so I spend it like over here. And that leads to like an easy slope, if you want to call it that, of sales. It's very easy, because by the time they come to the sale part of it, I have easy sales, which I'll put that down here. So let's go this one here. Easy sales. Because I have more trust, right? They trust me more when I'm having conversations at the top end and not trying to sell them. And yes, I'm spending more time over here, but I'm spending less time, if anything at all, on the back end, which is that's where the transactions happen. So I'm not spending time in transactions. So that is the whole, that's the concept of what I'm trying to say here, is that you have to choose one or the other, where you're going to spend your time. Is it on the back end trying to sell people, or is it on the front end having conversations and having them trust you so that the sales become super easy?
Yeah.
Thoughts, process, feedback, anything, questions from you and from anybody listening?
Well, I'm gonna make it about me for a minute.
Please.
It's I'm almost disappointed I don't have something to like argue with you about.
Okay, so while you're doing that, I'm going to copy this and put it on one page.
Yeah. But when you go through this, I see similarities between the through line
Cool.
that I talk about.
Okay, cool.
Because that's the same idea, is that basically you are, you bring people into your world with something that's really high value and create that core message throughout the path, so that when it comes to the sale, they're really asking for it before you really you offer it. And
Right.
so it's just a similar method. It's like the same goal, I guess. Maybe we see the same way, and likely complementary ways of doing it and looking at it. So,
Right.
people using the through line may not go into the conversations, may not do it Atlas way. They maybe do it in a different way. Um, they may use email marketing, or they may even use webinars or whatever, somewhere in there, but it's still focused on that front end and bringing in the right people for
Yeah, that's the
part of
biggest
it.
part. And that's like where,
Yeah.
it's a slower process, or I'm just going to call it a harder process, because it's kind of like when I looked at this or started drawing this out this morning or this afternoon, the immediate thing that came to mind was the big rock analogies, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like that thing, or even eat that frog first, like eat the frog. It was like that, like do the hardest thing in the morning and then ease into the simpler things and the easier things, where most of us want to do the easy thing. I'm like that dude. Let me start the easy thing and then I'll wait to do the harder thing, right?
Hey, but in my self-diagnosis of ADD via TikTok and Reels, and a little bit of some books or whatever, they actually said, for ADD, you're actually better off doing one of the small things so that you get the dopamine rush first off. So
That's
I don't know that.
totally true.
Yeah. So I don't know what to do about the frog. He gets to live a little longer. But I was thinking of the Peter Drucker quote, like the goal of marketing is to make selling superfluous. So
Yes.
basically you don't have to sell. I mean, I
Yes.
don't want to, I don't think either of us want to make it look it just, it just makes it super easy to sell. And I
No.
think eventually it does, but, or at least gets easier, but it's not the hard work. And it doesn't have to be that way.
Yeah, it is not. Yeah, I don't want to put this across as like, hey, do this, and all of a sudden you got all this money falling in your lap. This really is about trying to visualize and explain to everyone that you have to trade time somewhere, and as well. I mean, people come to me all the time to get out of trading time for dollars. Okay, so that's another conversation. That's not what we're talking about here, because you still have to trade some kind of time to be effective. And I think that a lot of people are trading time for the wrong thing. Where I stepped into trading my time, but again, this is not 24/7 either. This is very effective time management, if you want to call it that, in the front end, making things harder. I'm just using that word because it is more difficult, because you're having conversations and they're not like, let's jump on a call so I can sell you. Because that could be pretty easy, right? I could get on a chat
Yeah.
or something and say, hey, here's my link, because that happens all the time. And that's the easy part. If we go back to this, that's the easy one. Hey, I am having chats with people, or I'm having conversations, but then no, not really, because you're saying get on a call, and you have, going back to this, you have all of this. You have this resistance. You have less trust, because all you're doing is trying to get someone on a call or put them through a 5-day sequence to try and sell them something, and they don't have a lot of trust. Whereas I know for a fact that the more time that I'm spending over here, the more trust I'm gaining all the time. They're just trusting what I do. And that's all because that I'm in conversations with people, which makes the sale easy at the end. So there's no process that I have to deal with to really sell somebody. They've already trusted me because I've chosen personally to go here to do the hard stuff at the beginning, to get all of that out of the way. And then what I mean by hard as well is that it's not hard anymore. It was more of like, what's the process look like, or what does the conversations look like, and how do I put this into my life? Because we talk a lot about that too, right? So it's not,
Yeah.
because you and I can both give someone a system, your through line, my message navigator, whatever, but it's not, the thing doesn't do the work.
No.
It's you
No.
and how you apply it and put it into your life.
Exactly. Yeah. Oh, exactly. I think it's it can just be a shift for people to start doing those conversations, and it can seem, um, I'm just thinking when you start out, it's, you fumble a little bit and it's not perfect, and the first three people don't say yes, and then it feels like it doesn't work,
Right.
and yet it does. Like, it's sometimes you just have to start and just
Yeah.
do it. And I can say that now because I just did a reel this afternoon, and the first one in I don't know how long. So I can say that I started. So I know how hard it is. Like,
Yep.
I've been feeling that way. So um, when you make that shift, but you're building relationships, and that's the key piece to it. And sometimes we're going to talk to people who we don't want to build a relationship with. Um,
Yeah, and on the
but
back end
there's
too, like
still,
you're the same thing as you just said is, if you're building, you have to build relationships either way. So like what you just said is that if you did this, okay, and you started on the easy side, let's say here, I don't like that color for this. go back here. So if you started on the easy and you're building relationships, then it's going to get harder over here because, like, again, this is basically the sale. You're going like right from easy to selling. And let's say that they don't buy from you, then this relationship hasn't been established enough for them to buy. Okay, so
Yeah.
would you agree?
I, I mean, it's almost just like going out to the ice cream truck. Like,
Yeah,
really? Like, it's easy. They drive down the street. You get to the ice cream truck, but like, I'm not buying a year's worth of ice cream. I don't get to know the guy. Like, I get my ice cream and I go away. I hope somebody remembers ice cream trucks,
yeah, I'm
because that
sure.
could be a really bad that could be a really bad metaphor. Um,
They still
but I
have we
don't
still
think,
have ice cream trucks coming around here. I don't know about you, but I do.
yeah, we do now. But like it's really like it's fun. You smile at somebody, but there's no relationship built. Like I've got no loyalty. If there's three ice cream trucks, I'm going to buy from the
Yeah,
one that shows up when I'm ready for ice cream. Like I'm
yeah,
not waiting for um, something else. Like I don't
yeah.
know.
And if anybody listening, by the way, if you have any questions or challenges or feedback on this, please let me know. I'd like to know more from you because I'm just brainstorming this idea, and I'd love to know what makes sense, what doesn't make sense, any questions about it. Because in my mind, if you're doing it this way, you're the relationship in, and this again is my opinion, Lorna. I mean, if you do it this way and you say like leads come in, your little funnel thingy, like
Yeah.
this, and then you got easy leads, and then you boom, you try to sell them. I think you damage the relationship in
Mm-hmm.
some small way, shape, or form. And that means that they don't buy, which means you still have to build these relationships, right? You still have to build them. You still have
Yeah.
to do stuff, but you're
You
starting
get
with
a
a
lot.
negative.
Yeah. You get a lot more people who don't buy by not like by spending the time in the sales. Like it just reminds me, when I think about this of, and I'm likely going to offend somebody, but whatever. Is that like when you do it and you, because it's one thing that drives me crazy is the just get a lead magnet out there and build your list. Like that drives me crazy.
Yeah.
And when I think about that, I think like all I can think of about is the widget line, like because the language doesn't even talk about people. Like I mean, a lot of marketing doesn't, and I'm as guilty as anyone at sometimes, but it just feels like, like let's just like pack all this stuff into this funnel. Like just get in there, get in there, and then they're in there, but they're not the right people. They're you don't have the right people on, and so you don't have the right list, and then it makes it harder all along,
Right.
because
Right.
like you go back in circles. You're going to go to the sales, and then you're going to have to bring whoever's left back to the easy side anyway, and start communicating them with them in a different way. So
Well,
whether
that's
it's
what you
in
just described. The easy process is just get a lead magnet out there and get whoever you want in, and then try and sell them stuff. And that's
yeah,
leads right to the hard part. It's like, well, that's going to be
yeah.
really hard for you.
Well, I may have said something backwards there. So yeah,
Well, like, don't you
yeah,
agree? That's what you said. Like, get a lead
yeah,
magnet out. You're going to spend all this time trying to sell people by whatever methods you want. It's one sales sequence leads to a next
yeah,
one. The deadline this, or it goes into another launch sequence, whatever. You're spending all of this time trying to convert those sales, where for me, I'm doing it the opposite way. I'm spending time and effort into the front end, which you could argue, is it harder? Is it easier? For me, it's not that hard, but on this scale, it would be the harder piece because you're not getting conversions like right away every single day. But at the same time, I truly believe that the biggest part for anybody listening to this, the biggest part of this is that I think is this piece right here, is this trust right there. Like that's a huge piece of this, because if you're spending time in conversations right here and helping people and truly helping them, they will trust you more, and the bond builds more because you're spending time with them. And it's kind of like you've heard me say a billion times, invest in your clients first. And that's what's happening over here. If you're not willing to invest in your client, which is the hard part, right? It's hard because you're putting in time, you're not getting any ROI out of it or whatever. But at the back end, you're making it easier.
Okay, since this is the first time that you've really like shown this to anyone, and this baby is still like hasn't had its first
hasn't burst yet correctly.
So I just as you keep talking about that, and you know me in words, so I think I can see where that is, where the hard and the easy, but I'm not sure that hard is the right description for building those relationships.
What is it?
It's time consuming. Like it takes time. It does take some more energy, maybe. But I'm thinking like I could, because I'm not a salesperson. I could like it would be easier for me to stay in the conversations. Like I might not, like I might get, or the conversations go in the wrong direction because I don't want to have to deal with the sale, which I guess maybe once it's an easy sale, then that, it wouldn't be, that part maybe would be the same. I'm just kind of talking this out because I it's a thought that I had is just,
I understand. I agree with you. Like maybe hard and easy is not the right ends of the axis. I don't know yet. All I'm saying is that I know that there's easy sales for sure because I've put in the hard work. Like that's really kind of what it is. It's more of the hard work. It is work. Like having conversations, tracking the conversations, like all that stuff that we talk about in Atlas, like that's work. It's hard work up front. So, and we get asked this question all the time, right? Like, how do you track it? What do you do? All these other things. And it's like, it's not just willy-nilly. So like, it could be like, hey, well, the way you get at sales is you have DM conversations, and that could just be the blanket statement like, oh, okay, that's cool. But that's not what I do. That's not the only thing I do. Right, like it's all tracked and all, like it's a very robust, not robust. It's something that it's trackable, and I'm going back and I'm following up with people, but not in a sales way. Like, hey, do you want to buy today? Are you ready to buy? Like, not that kind of stuff. And that's what I mean by it being hard. It's harder work up front, so that the back end is like easy.
Yeah.
Does that make more sense of why? Hard and easy.
That's why I can't come up with another name, because I get it, because it is, and like a lot, I don't know.
Like this is probably would be better if it was hard work, hard work and easy work. Because truthfully, Lorna, like that when somebody finally raises their hand to buy from me, it's like, it's a cinch. I'm like, well, I didn't even have to do anything. And if I just focused only on that component of Atlas or my process, I would be lying. I'd be like, oh yeah, it's simple. Somebody DMs me and says, tell me about this, and 3 seconds later I've got $4,000 from them. Like, but that's not the truth. But that's the truth in terms of it being easy. Right? That was the easy part. And a lot of gurus and stuff love to sell just that easy part. They don't talk about the hard, which is what I want somebody to see, is like, where do you want to spend your time? Is it on the front end, or do you want to spend it on the back end, which is up here?
So I don't know if this is the right word. Would something be like high investment? Like if you're talking about time, would it be like high investment?
You're true. Yeah, I've looked at those words too, like commitment, investment of time. Like yeah, for sure. These are big words for sure. Like this is a low
Yeah.
commitment. Oops, wrong
Right.
thingy. This is low commitment of time.
Yeah.
Commitment. And this is a high commitment. Right? So you're absolutely
Yeah.
right.
Yeah. I think what gets me is the for me, and I'm really not that unique, so I don't think I'm the only one. Is just that if I think about sales, like if I say that I did this where I've got more leads and I'm doing
Oops.
sales,
Mm-hmm.
um, that it would be hard for me to do sales, not just because of this, just because I'm not a salesperson. So sales would always be hard.
Well,
I don't
you
know
and me
if
are
that,
both. You and me are both. Okay, so this is. I'm glad you brought that up because we're both the same. Like I don't think I'm a good salesperson at all, and I had struggle with doing it the other way of this way we just shown on screen.
yeah,
Like it's easy. Let me get leads in and get on the calls. In my case, it was calls, and I never had any sales whatsoever. Really, it was really difficult for me. It was challenging. It was stressful. All that stuff.
yeah,
So I still don't consider myself a great salesperson. All I consider myself is someone who is a good conversationalist who shows that they care for somebody, which is why
yeah,
that whole trust thing is there. It's like it's kind of natural. Like this is who I am. I'm going to share my beliefs. I'm going to challenge you. It's not sales. It's like this is a real conversation between two individual humans, and they're all different. The conversation is different. Yes, there's a little bit of, you know, similarity to the conversations, but it's all specific. And I believe that's where the superpower is, which makes the sales easy in the back end. At least for me. What do you think?
yeah. That I mean, it's when I was doing Facebook ads. That's I didn't have Atlas, so I didn't have the whole message navigator, but had some sales training of. But really, I served, and that's like
But you
I
don't need a message navigator. Do you not think that if you got on a chat or a call or anything with somebody about the problem of their lead magnet not going to the next phase in the journey and all that, you couldn't just talk them through it?
oh, absolutely.
So then you don't need a message. You don't
No,
need a navigator,
no,
right?
no.
It's more of and you don't think that if you help them through and they saw the light that you could sell them because you're not really selling them. You're saying
Well,
here's the
no,
thing, and they're like,
that's what I
wow,
yeah, but that's what I like. I don't think I had to sell many like
right,
at all because I
that's it.
helped and I connected with them and I became a human. Like I can remember, the calls that would just. So how do I hire you? Like
Right, right,
you know.
right, right. What's
So
the next step? I
yeah.
love when they say that. I remember, like, I remember having scripts, like, and reading it, and then get to the end, and the script was, so where do you want to go from here? Like that was the line.
Yeah.
That was the sales line too, right? And
Mhm.
I stopped saying that. I'm not saying never use it, but it was like that was part of the script. I'm like, oh, that's the conversion word, right, or the conversion thing. But now they say it. So I'm like, are we cool? Is there anything else that I didn't ask you? Is there anything else that we're missing, or did you get what you're looking for? And sometimes they'll say, where do we go from here, or what's the next step? And it's so great that they say it, and
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
have to. That's what I mean by
Yeah.
this is like the easy sale is here. They do all the work down there. I don't have to do anything.
Yeah. I mean, it's wonderful when when that happens. Like it. I think the one from the script that I used, or maybe it was one of my coaches that told me is the would you like help with that? Like when
Yeah,
you feedback, this is what I see, this is what's going on, you know, this is what you can do to improve it, and would you like help with that?
yeah.
Um, But
Yep.
it was just it was a lot more fun when they just said, "Okay, enough. How much? How?" And not how much does it cost, but it was how do I work with you? Like
Right. Right.
how do I hire you?
Yeah.
Um, so yeah.
Any if there's any questions, by the way, let us know. Or if you're here live, let me know as well with a hashtag live or a hashtag replay if you're watching the replay, because I'd love to know that too. If you have any questions, please put them in the chat. Let's get some interaction here and helping you out. Or I'd love to know your feedback as well on what you think of this whole process to being drawn out in front of you. It's like, oh my gosh, Joey's brain on fire.
Well, you've got a. It hasn't come through the comments, but I see it. Um, just looking at my phone. Um, is somebody asked about what you're doing to make the graphics? That's Rich
It's Rich.
Lamandola. Who's yeah, Rich Lamandola. He's from my mastermind group.
Ah,
He's from
it's a
Texas.
Notability. Notability. One of my favorite apps. And I use Ecamm. So what you're seeing and all the switching and all that stuff is Ecamm, and I've got Notability connected.
Oh, I see another.
I don't see them coming through here. They must be on a different channel.
I'm pretty sure. Well, Collie. It was just really early at 40. Looks like at 45. Oh, no, never mind. My phone
Yeah.
flipped. My phone
Okay.
flipped to a different call. I did.
Okay.
It was last week's live stream. My phone was on.
Oh, okay. Okay, cool.
There we are.
So,
Don't ask me. Don't ask me how that happened.
hey, well,
You'd think I would know my face.
yeah, for sure. All right, we are here. We're talking about right now. It's called the Time Trader. It's basically where
There
do
we
you
go.
want to spend your time? You have to choose one or the other because you're going to spend it somewhere. And I'd love to know from you if you have any questions about it, and then maybe I can talk to it a little bit. Maybe look at what you're doing and maybe how to help you get a little bit easier in your process. Or you want to just talk about anything else? That's cool too.
Yeah, I'd sure love to hear. Like it makes so much more sense to me.
Where would you spend your time, Lorna? Where would you choose on that?
Well, I'd be building relationships and having conversations.
The
Yeah,
harder doing the harder work up
yeah,
front, right? Yeah, that's cool.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah.
It wouldn't be on the sales side, that's for sure. But I
Did
can
you
see
do that
where
as
did I
did you do any of that sales side where it was not working for you and found that you don't want to spend your time there?
I'm just I'm I think I'm in the club with Brian Kurtz and like I'm, the sales prevention person. The Because it's just not a natural fit. Like for me, some of the scripts helped me when I was starting out. Um, in just being able to get the concept of and doing service work is maybe it's really not a whole lot different. Like I never had a funnel, so I never yeah, I mean I was a Facebook app person who never advertised. I never had a funnel. I just I did Prefluence before it had a name and had people DM me and then they said, "How can I hire you?" So,
It's
um,
brilliant.
it's yeah, that those were in the days where it's like, "Oh, come on, Joey, quit content marketing already."
Yeah, yeah.
But it just it worked that way. Like that's what you teach in Atlas works.
Yeah,
Like the Prefluence and it's being in the right group as well.
yeah.
Um, that's part of it, and those are sometimes some of the harder. Maybe I don't know if they're harder, but I think like having shifted a little bit in what I'm doing, that, some of the groups that I was in before aren't a fit
Yep.
necessarily.
Yep.
So, and not just the groups, I mean, yeah, just some of the things that they've done with their own groups that makes it a little, finding the right people again. So I can see, but that's just all part of, like, that just takes time to find the right place. But
Mm-hmm.
when you find the right place, and you show up to help, um, in some way,
Mm-hmm.
that, uh, you get to build those relationships. That's where that time investment is so key, and that's where so many people are watching that you don't even know until they start messaging you.
Right. Right.
So, it's not always a linear process, and um, it's not always like, once I get this, then this is going to work and that's going to work. Sometimes you have to figure a few things out before it
Yeah.
fully works for you. Like it, but
100%.
that's where the time comes in. But I'd rather spend time there, even if I mess it up. Like, what's the worst thing that can happen? I might make a new friend.
Mm-hmm.
I guess if I really mess up bad, I could get kicked out of a Facebook group. Um, but not likely are we going to be doing that,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
there's pieces to it that help build that relationship.
Yeah. That's what I mean. You're going to have to build relationships one way or the other, unless you're in that other camp where it's like, look, email is for selling, period, and they either buy or they don't, and I don't really care, because I've been in those groups as well. I'm like, okay, this is not for me, thanks. I'm driving
Well,
out.
that's the one client that I took on that I should never have taken on, like, was very much in, like, very much of that style of, we're going to get them in by offering the website design, like they were using Go High Level, and, like, just get them in, and then and then it's like four sales emails, like, as soon as that's the funnel that they were building for people. And it's just, and it was so salesy. Like, there was no, like, it was like a robot. It's the widget. Here's the widget. This is where you go. Now you're in the opt-in. We're going to move you over to this production line over here. In this production line, you're now going to get the four sales emails. And, once we get to the end of the production line, well, then we're going to decide whether you're going to go into the sale or you're going to go back into this email. Like, it was so foreign to, like, any marketing concept that I've learned. I guess maybe I understand it, so I must have learned that somewhere. But that idea of, like, just put them on the assembly line, bring them in, and either they come in and they buy or they don't buy, and there's like, nowhere to actually connect with them.
Yeah, it was like, I love that you use that word assembly line, because that's really what it is. It's like every day it's the same thing.
Yeah,
Here's the next email. Here's the next sales pitch. Buy or leave. Buy or leave. Buy or leave. It's the same thing again and again and again. I just couldn't believe it. And that was the mentality of like, wow, I got to get out of here real quick. So
yeah,
anyway, that's the concept of it. It was basically you putting your time in somewhere, wherever you want. Do you feel as though is your best use of time, I suppose? And I think there's discussions around it all. I mean, at least for me, because on the side of this over here, where it was really difficult for me, to be on calls like every day, and like all over here, and
yeah,
it was very stressful. And so there's a whole other discussion that comes from this, what we're drawing here, because it has to do with your life. It has to do with like how you're showing up, and everything else, because you're putting all this time and effort into something that's not working, right?
yeah,
So it stems into other discussions above and beyond. I'm not making any sales.
yeah. Well, and I think it's, um, even if you are making some sales, it's a drag. Like
Yeah.
for me. I mean, there are some people who are good salespeople, I guess, but like it would take a lot of energy out of me
Yeah.
to do a sale call versus building the relationship call. I mean, even the two call close, there's some ways to make that work. And I think that, like, depending on what that relationship is before you get in, like, again, you're not talking to, at least most of the time. I guess in some places you are, but in the way that I was looking at it, it would be somebody that I know already that I would be inviting to the first call anyway. So I've built a relationship. But, there's some things that I can see why they work. But again, you see them on surface, and where do they spend their time first? Like
Right. That
that's
I believe that's the easy
that,
part. That's where they're spending it. They're spending it over on this other area. They're like, it's easy. Let me just get people onto a call, a two call close, whatever you
yeah,
want, and then I'm going to spend all my time over here, making the sale.
yeah.
And I was in that. I don't know what you're referring to the two call close, but from my
Well,
understanding, it was kind of more of the curation thing, if you want to call it that. It was like, hey, are you a fit for this? And are you ready for this? Okay, great. Then let's get on another call and I'll help you with all these other things. And then you sell them on that second call. I tried that
yeah.
for like, oh my God, so long.
There's that. There's actually what, and I can't remember who did it. Um, but it is one where the first call really has no offer. So it's a little bit discovery call, but it's also helping and going through, what their challenges are, and like it's kind of like a discovery call. And then actually at the end, the I guess there is an offer, but it's just like, would it be okay if we met again on
Right.
another call? I've been working on this program. Would you like to hear about it?
Oh,
So
okay.
they get a chance to say no, like if they don't want to hear about the program. But it's more, and I don't remember whether they would take, like, maybe in their world they would take, it's through lead generation with, and not building a relationship before they had that conversation. Um, I think I tried it, but I was doing that with the um, with people I knew,
Yeah,
like
like
that
the
I've
way
already
that I did
placed
it was
before.
it was more of and either way, like warm, cold leads, whatever it was, but it was more of a demonstration, which is kind of cool, but it didn't really work for me because you're getting on the first call to say, and it was a very short call, it had to be short, 10 minutes maybe. It was more of a qualification.
Oh,
Here's what this is.
yeah.
Here's how much I charge if we are going to work together. That kind of stuff. Do you understand all that? Yes. What's the challenge that you have? I can only fix these challenges. Tell me what's going on. And then you're like, oh, okay, Lorna, it sounds to me like I think I can help you. Let's get on another call and let me work through some stuff with you. So it was another demonstration of
Oh,
power, right? So then on that second call,
yeah.
you would do the work. You're like, okay, here, da 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 da. And then at the end of that, like, so would you like some help with all this, right? So, it wasn't like I got a program.
Yeah.
And that's okay. It doesn't work. I'm not dissing anything. It was okay. I know it kind of
No.
works, but for me, it was like this. I had to be. Yeah, it just didn't work for me. Didn't work for me. Maybe
Yeah.
because I gave too much. I don't know. Because I was like, I'm just wanting help, and here's everything you need to go do. Go do this. And like, by the way, do you want some help with that? Nah. I think what I'm gonna do is do what you said, and then come back
Yeah.
and see if there's anything else. Right? Like,
Yeah.
okay.
I think the only times I really ever had to do call close when I was doing Facebook ads was when we'd already be on the call for like an hour, hour and a half helping them, and they didn't, you know, it would just be like, yeah, I want to hire you, but or something else came up. We just ran out of time, so
Yeah.
then I'd circle back to them and go back, but I didn't
Yeah.
really. Most of the time, that was sometimes determined on the first call. I mean, I think if there's any downside, it's that likely I gave too much. Like, because there'd be, I think of one lady I was spending time, I likely spent, I don't know, anywhere between 6 and 10 hours with her in trying to navigate something that was going south. And, um, like it, it was a lot of time. And like, she never came on as a client.
I think that,
She never came
for
on
our
as a
person,
client. She didn't come on as a client. She bought a $97 workshop from me and then asked for a refund. And I really wished I'd have made a different decision, but I didn't. But she asked for the refund like 2 or 3 days after the refund time was over. And I just, I went on the route of like, if I'm going to, you know, I need to show people that, if it's a 30-day refund policy, it's a 30-day refund policy. It's not 32 or 33. Um, and I don't know. I put my stick in the sand with that, and it maybe wasn't the right decision. But like, I just kind of went like I gave you likely $3,000 or $4,000 worth of time
I know, yeah,
for
yeah,
free,
yeah.
and you want the $97 back. But what I offered, like I said, like the refund time is over, but I'm happy to hop on the phone with you and work through it and get it solved. That was
Even
how
give them
I,
more time.
yeah. But it's like,
Yeah, like I mean, I think for us, like we have a lot of the same personality and like what we're about and what we do for people, and as I'm talking this out with you, because the giving too much and it never really worked, I still do on the front end, like give a lot and help people through things
yeah,
that, and a lot of them never become clients, and that's totally okay with me because that's just who I am as a person. So I think that as anybody listening to this and looking at like the drawings here, like which one of these are you going to invest your time with and all that, it's not just a simple black and white either. It could be like what am I all about? Like, and this is the deeper work. It's because this marketing world, as you know, I'm very big on who are you? Like, what type of a person are you? Like, what do your values look like? And what do you want to set up in terms of your lifestyle first? Let's do all that first and then build everything around that. And a lot of people just don't think about any of this stuff. They just like, what's the thing that can sell? Going back to Rich Sheffrin's opportunity seekers versus solution seekers and all these things, right? There's a
yeah.
lot of opportunity seekers out there. What's the next big thing? Oh my God, let me go do that. Oh, the challenge is here. Like, let me go do that. And
I
they
I
end up
I
spending
spent
a lot of time.
I spent what? This is 2024. I bet I spent 8 years, maybe 9. The very beginning, it wasn't very much, but like, it was opportunity seeking the whole time.
Yeah.
Really,
Yeah.
it was. There was no business growth plan.
Yeah.
Like, even if I pretended there, I mean, I could say this is, I could make it sound like there was a business growth
Right.
plan,
I'm trying to grow my
but
business by doing these other things.
yeah,
Yeah, I'm chasing.
but
I bought this other
like
course. Of course, I'm growing my
yeah,
business. Okay.
yeah. But it hits the difference between being an opportunity seeker and being an entrepreneur who seeks their own opportunities is vastly different.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a different mindset. Like, it's a different mindset.
Yeah.
And I lightly fight both mindsets still. Um, Even though I totally understand and know which side I want to be on.
Yeah.
But I think about the time trade and where do you want to spend the time. And of course, my mind goes in different directions sometimes. So because I think this is a caution, maybe, because I don't think I'm unique, but I could get lost and stay in building trust and having conversations. um, I mean, me, like, you've called me out in the, like, you like to create, you like to develop. So like, even the email conversations, the emails, that front end stuff that you want to do to build the business, to build the credibility, to build the trust, to get people to want to have those conversations. Like all that work, I could hang out just talking to people, but like it without having um, that specific and definitive. Um, I don't know if it's a plan or whatever you want to call what you do with Atlas. Like without um, those, knowing that you're what you're tracking, knowing how to decide whether this person is a right fit or not for you. And what do you do when that happens? And what do you do with the people who are the right fit? And how does that message, like using the message navigator or like whatever process somebody uses for that, like there's all these little pieces in there, and they're not little necessarily. So there's like it's not just spend your time talking with people. Um, there's
No, but I mean,
there's more
yeah, you
to
see,
it.
like the dilemma that you're bringing up, there's two sides of it, right? It's the side of not knowing what to do. And then there's the other side where you're referencing a methodology or a program that already works. So you're
Yeah.
kind of you kind of know behind the curtain already. Whereas when I was doing it before without Atlas, I didn't know anything like that. So if you approach it now, you have something to fall back on. So yes, I'm going to call you out because you're an Atlas student to say hey, just do this, and this. But there wasn't that in place. And even for people listening right
No.
now who aren't there, they have to still figure all this out on their own, which is where this is about. Let me go back to my iPad. It's about like, where's the commitment? Are they going to put it into conversations, right? Or are they going to put it into harder conversations on the back end, trying to sell people like over here, right? And so what you said was really important, because I don't think it's a waste of time to do conversations when you don't know, like, where am I going to go?
Oh, yeah.
And again, I'm splitting this conversation up, or
Yeah.
this answer up, because you already know Atlas, but pretend for a second you didn't know that anything about Atlas, or you didn't have a message navigator, right? You didn't have any of that. Then look at it from that perspective, because those conversations are worthwhile to you. So you could think that, well, all I'm doing is spending time on these conversations and I don't have any place to go, but you don't know any better right now.
Yeah.
And if
Yeah.
I was coaching you at that level, and you weren't part of Atlas or anything, I'd be like, keep doing this, because sooner or later you're going to see a pattern here that you could maybe just offer somebody, do you want some help with this? Because I think I know what the problem is, right? And it all stems from there. That makes sense? Because we're looking at it from both perspectives. You're like on the inside, and then there's the outside piece of it,
Yeah. Well,
right?
and I guess I'm looking at me and where my comfort zone is.
Right. Okay. So yeah.
Like even whether so I mean you're right with all that you just said, because I have information that other people don't have yet, from Atlas. But I think about like before I even got into marketing, but I was trying to come up and raise funds for a big project that I was doing. And I told somebody, I said, because they said something about how to sell. It was actually like a salesperson at the newspaper that my husband worked at. Just a minute. Hopefully that helps. The
Yeah.
lemon might tickle my throat. But they, and I just said, well, I'm a nice lady. They'll just want to buy from me. Like that was
Mm.
my marketing tactic. So maybe I still need to drop that. I thought I had, but so I could have a conversation, but not one that would necessarily do what I wanted it to do. I don't want that to sound manipulative, but we could be talking about daffodils and puppies, and instead of talking
Oh,
about what
okay.
they're,
Yeah. So yeah, this is
I
another
could just be
layer.
comfortable. Yeah, so
Yeah.
it's another
Like,
layer of there still has to be some kind of intention
yeah.
and focus for those conversations, even if you don't know for sure what you're doing, exactly, or you don't do it the Atlas way.
Yeah,
There's
there's
almost
that
a
bonding.
design of some kind.
Say again.
So there's a design of some kind.
Yeah, there's like this bonding piece of it where, rapport building of some kind. Of you're not going to ignore somebody if they they mention something about daffodils in your case, whatever. You're like, oh, I love that. But if you get into a whole conversation all about that, like that's not why we're here. The intent is,
Yeah.
how can I support and help you? And if that leads into a conversation later on or whatever, that looks like, that's fantastic. But I always steer those conversations back in, because I mean, I have to protect my time too, but also their time. And why am I here? This is not a conversation where it's just about everything else. So you're right. There has to be some kind of intent, and the intent for me on there is to build relationships and bond. Period. Anything else outside of that, but it's a business relationship. But it's also that, that friendship, because that's what I believe. It's like I'm building a friendship here that I would invite you over to my house for dinner, kind of thing, and but it's about business. Like, how can I serve you and help you, if in the future or at any time you believe that I'm somebody who can help. So that's the intent of it all. So you're right. Like, it has to be focused on your superpowers of what you're doing, but there's no expectation from that conversation, is what I'm talking about when I go back to this
Yeah.
piece here, right? Because the lower the
Yeah.
commitment, the higher the commitment here on these conversations, you know, these things over here is where I'm putting all my energy, because I know I'm building trust. And by the way, like, as I'm talking about this, it's not like out of 10 conversations that 9 of them become clients or something. That doesn't happen. But at the same time, you're just building a cool reputation on what you do, but at the same time you're doing what you love, and then the right person, when they get into that situation, they become clients, which to me is the part that's here, which is the easy work, because I've put it
Yeah.
all in it, and it's a continuous thing for me, all over and over and over and over again. Like, what am I going to do? How do I steer this conversation to help this person move forward? Because, as you know, people who come into our world, 50% of them are never ever going to become clients. So it's the same thing as if you're on a chat or an email or whatever. It's the same thing. 50% of all of those are never going to buy from you. But does that mean that it has to be, well, don't talk to me?
No.
Because maybe they know somebody who does want to work with you. I don't know. So I just treat it like, let's be cool.
Well, yeah, absolutely. I was going to say that's, I mean, I think one of the valuable things about having those conversations is that you get to, I mean, if it's not the right fit, it's not the right fit, or it's not the right fit right now, or it's the right fit but not the right time,
Yep.
and you allow for that. There's no, there's no telling what people will do when they respect you. And sometimes when you say no to them, they respect you more.
Right.
And the ones who
100%.
don't are likely the dream client anyway.
Yeah,
Um,
100%.
so it's you don't know where that relationship's gonna go. Some will disappear, like they won't ever come back. Others will. Some will send referrals. They may drop off and come back, and drop off and come back. Like it's hard to know. What did I just? I think it was on like just a quick post by Cassim, I think, about oh gosh, now it was something, actually it was more about firing people, I think it was, basically, or letting a client go or whatever. But do you always let a client go, um or like the best thing to do is to let a client go assuming that they're going to come back?
Yeah, I just saw it today. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
so
something I've never heard
I
before.
butchered that. I butchered what he said, but it's about how you treat people. Um, and I don't know. Rich says something like, "You learn what people are really like when the relationship ends."
That's true. Yeah, that's true.
Um, so,
Or when they don't need
you
anything from you.
know, yeah, it's well, and I think I've heard him say that when he let his, yeah, he when you have to let somebody go, or that's, or they leave, like it that I think he was speaking about that in far as part of his team at one point. Not that
Mm-hmm.
he was talking about that situation that it went bad, but just it was just a just talking about what you do when it's not they're not the right fit anymore in your team.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So and what he did, but to help him.
I get
But
it.
I think that's the same thing as clients, and um, sometimes we find one where the relationship just has to end. But that's I think that happens a lot less when you spend the time on the front end.
100%. But at
You
the
don't
same
have to
time,
learn
I've
everything.
seen. I don't know. I mean, sometimes it freaks me out if a client leaves. Like I've spent all that time on the front end, and they still end up leaving. Whatever. Just things change over time. Just things just happen and change over time. I hope that when they do leave, that they leave with the utmost respect and thing for me. Um, but it
Yeah.
still hurts. It's still like, what did I do? I always think of that. My brain always goes to that. Like, what did I do? This person
Well,
left,
we're
but that's just human
we're
nature,
not.
I guess.
Well, I was gonna say we're not widgets either, Joe.
Yeah, for sure.
Like we're human beings and we have feelings, and we work hard. Like when you work hard for someone, and you might even feel like not just what did I do, um, but I someone that you've invested a pile of time in, and you're going like I just like not that they should have to reciprocate, but it goes like what did I do? Like I spent all this time,
Yeah, that's
and
what I
now
mean.
right? Like what happened? Like and yet it's likely about them.
It's always about them. It's always about us. Like, when I have challenges, when I'm looking at the world, I'm always looking at how am I at fault here in terms of me looking at something else when something's
Yeah.
not working? Like, what am I doing that's not working right? Same as in this situation with the client. Like, I'm not looking at it. I always look at what could I have done better? What can I do better for the clients I still have or whatever? So I'm always looking at that point of it. But still, I always in the back of my head, like, what did I do? I didn't change anything. I kept being who I am. And you're right that like probably their situation changes. They've got what they got out of it, and that's cool, and they move on, and just the way it is.
Yeah. Well, and,
You know?
and there's the difference between the self-reflection of looking at a situation and saying what happened here,
Yeah,
and what could I do next time? What could I do different that would be better?
yeah,
And the questioning of going like I think I did everything like right. I've done like I don't think I did anything wrong. Even though there might be something to do better, but
yeah.
it's
Always,
not
there always
it's
is.
wrong. But I mean, we take that on as a coach, and because like we want to do it so that they don't want to leave, like that they're happy with, and it's not maybe not even that they were unhappy, and the people who are unhappy, it's not easy to sit there and just go, well, they weren't the right fit because there's lots of other things that run through your head about if they weren't the right fit, then how did I let why where did I not see that? Like there's just lots of things that we question ourselves, and um i I think that's why it's important to have your good circle, your inner circle of people, like because if it really gets you down,
Yeah, yeah.
um it can help you go through that,
I
like
think that
just
if we circle back here, Lorna, to this, because what you just said sparked something in my. I wanted to talk to it for a second because when I talk about the hard part, like the hard commitment or whatever, high commitment of time, and we were just talking a little bit about I put all this time and energy into this and this person left or whatever. I think that has a lot to do with this concept or this idea because if if someone is looking only for the conversion piece of it, and I've seen some of these conversations. I've seen people post stuff like this where it's like, I spent 10 minutes on a chat and nobody bought. What should I do? Should I block this person, or like, what should I ever, what I mean? I'm like, wow. First of all, wow. And that's the hard part of it, because we're talking about the back end of something. Like, we're like, hey, we put a lot of energy and time and love and support into the person. Then they leave and like, wow, what did I do wrong? And you kind of feel however you feel, and that's normal. But then it's also normal at the front end, because it's like, this is where at least for me, my mindset had to shift of, this is not about a conversion. This is about, again, the building of the trust and the relationship and having conversations and all that. So I don't really get upset if I put in time that goes nowhere. Like, I just don't. Yeah. But I know for some people listening to this might go, whoa, like, if you're putting all this time and effort, you're not getting anything. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying I never get anything, but I don't judge each individual thing as an ROI expectation, right? It's not like this was a Facebook ad and I didn't get anything from this, so I'm going to kill this one. I don't kill the conversation. Like, you know what I mean? It's like sometimes conversations come back into play a year later, months later, and they come back into play. Now, there are, on a very small percent, very, very tiny percent, people who will take advantage of that. Like, they'll still stretch it as far as they can take it. And that's when you okay, that there's only so much I can do here, right? But that doesn't really happen a lot if you curate the right people, and if you know what you're there for. I mean, they can feel the energy. They can feel it back and forth, in my opinion, that all you want to do is sell me something here. And that's not what I do.
Yeah. Well, and you hear that. That's one of the things that you hear a lot, if not the most, is that you never sold to me. Like, that's right. Why. And sometimes it's, you never sold to me yesterday, so I'm ready to buy. And sometimes it's, you never sold to me 6 months ago. Sometimes it's you didn't try to sell me a year and a half ago, and now I'm here. Now I'm interested. Like, the time frame varies, but you hear that. You hear that. Like, you, yes. Joey, we're going.
Yes, exactly.
You hear that a lot. Like, you didn't try to sell me. And I think that's, that's proof that this works. It's a different approach than what a lot of marketers would tell you. But you're I mean, this is the point of the time trade, is you're spending the time somewhere. So
exactly.
Like, you can not connect with people and then try to connect with them during a sales conversation, which I think is just super hard. Like,
it is. I think it's like it's a forced bond. At least that's how I was feeling it when I was doing it, following scripts, and I had bonding thingies, and it just felt as though it was so forced, and it was. It just was. Yeah. It's like, hey, Lorna, where are you from? Like, where do you live? Alberta. Wow. I live in the world too. It's amazing. We're compatible. Like, we're on the same planet. Wow. So, right? Like, oh my God. And the other way around is just so much easier, at least for me, because it's like you're reaching out for some reason that is related to what I'm always talking about. So it's a lot easier to get into a bonding conversation, because it's about one of the major problems I deal with, right? And it can go anywhere else and go somewhere. A lot of conversations I have talk about heart-centeredness and caring and all these other things. That's a bond for me. That's a bonding thing. But I would never see I can't really see myself. If I look back to the scripting thingy, I wouldn't see myself getting on a call and say, hey, Lorna, I'm heart-centered. Like, what about you? Are you heart-centered? Or, like, you know what I mean? It would be such an awkward conversation. I don't know.
Very much so. So,
Lorna, it's been great.
it yeah.
Go ahead. I cut you off. You were going to say something?
I was just gonna say it works for some people. Like they want to spend
Definitely.
time here. Like that's why we have choices. That's why we get to have choices. But I think
Yeah.
most people who are watching you are not wanting to spend time in the sales conversations. They
Yeah, at
want to
least
spend
not in the pressure feeling of it or the ickiness. They don't want
yeah.
that. They want to make sales. Yes, for cool. You can have a sales conversation. That's totally cool. You could have a conversation where somebody says, "Tell me more about your program." And you get on a call and say, "Okay, let me share everything about it." That to me is a sales conversation, but it's more of a natural thing because you're invited to that. You're invited to it.
Yeah.
It's a
Yeah.
different thing than having it part of a always having it a part of a process. That's just who I am. Like
Yeah.
it's at the end of the day, we want to sell our products and all this stuff. But if every, at least from where I was before, the end result of every call was, well, how do I sell this thing? What's a way for me to sell? What's a way to convert this person? And that didn't work for me just because of who it just, they felt that I was nervous about doing that for sure.
Well, I'm sure there's you see it in the webinars with people when they give all their best stuff and they've built up all this rapport with the, and then that second happens when they move into the offer,
Yeah.
and it's like they just switched
Yeah.
personalities.
Their whole voice changes and everything. It's like,
And it's and please, I'm not making fun of anyone. If you've had that experience, you're not alone. And
yep.
but that's what it was like switching into the sales call, like to the sales piece, you
One of
know.
the ways that I got over that, because I did a couple of webinars, quite a few of them to try all that stuff, and that didn't work for me either. But one of the ways I did this, because I know myself and I knew that that was happening to me, where my voice changed or I got faster or slower, like something changed and a nervousness. So I would warn everybody that this is going to happen. So at the beginning, I would say, hey, listen, I'm going to show you all this kind of stuff, and then I'm going to offer you something at the end. When I get to that point, I'll tell you, so you can make a choice whether you want to stay or not. So I was preparing them for that, and the change, even though it happened, wasn't so like weird, because I would stop and I'd go, because I would even have a slide that said, changing to the pitch or something like that, changing to the offer. Here comes the offer, right? So I would stop on that slide and I go, okay, guys, as I mentioned, we're going to get into the offer now. So you can stay or you want, or you don't want to. And so it wouldn't be so awkward to try and
Yeah.
smoothly go into it. Right?
Yeah.
So, at least that's how I dealt with it.
Yeah. Yeah. Who wants to live there?
I don't, I just don't, I don't. Good to see that you're back, Collie. Perfect timing. Perfect timing to say, have a good night. No, anyway.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. Good to see you back here, Collie. And thank you for everybody for being here. By the way, if you're here live, let me know. Hashtag live or hashtag replay if you're watching the replay by now. Great to have you here, Lorna, on another Tuesday. Amazing. Great conversation. Thank you for helping me flush this out. I'm sure it'll get better over time. But thank you for challenging me and give me some input.
You're very welcome.
Is there
It was fun.
anything that you want to say before we head off for another week?
No, I don't think
Any
so.
final
Just have
words?
a great week.
Cool.
Have a great week.
You too. Bye, everybody. Good to see you. See you next Tuesday for another heart-centered marketing show.